Ah, hello and welcome to another episode of TesterSpeak special feature. And I'm your host, Brijesh Deep. With me on the screen is Eran Kinsbruner. Now, he is one of my favorite authors, speaker, mentor, community members, tester. You name it. He wears so many hats. He is very special to me, and that is why I thought that it is high time that I speak to him. So, welcome to the show, Eran.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on the show and hopefully contribute some new stuff to your audience.
Thank you so much. Well, Aaron, first things first. I have seen you in many conferences. I have seen you talk so wonderfully. You have written a few books. The one that impressed me the most, in fact, the one that I usually go back to every time, is DevOps for is it
Continuous
DevOps for
testing.
testing professionals? Yes.
Yes, continuous
And
testing.
yeah. So um, how did you come up with the idea of that book?
That's a great question. And since I'm working as the evangelist for Perfecto. Perfecto is a continuous testing platform for web testing and mobile testing. And when I was talking to the practitioners, and I meet practitioners every day, customers and ones that are contributing to the community, I understood a few things back then that they understand what is testing and they understand what is test automation, but making it it's not just making it continuous, but making it valuable time after time when you execute it so many times within CI, within CD, in DevOps, when you have so many complex digital platforms to cover, this is the big challenge. So I think, and I had a lot of conflicts with a few of the agile testing manifesto developers because okay, so what's the difference between test automation or agile testing and continuous testing? Are you trying to coin a new term or what's going on? So I explained them, listen, agile is agile, but agile testing is not continuous testing. And there was a confusion. Continuous testing means that you are able to calibrate, validate your test automation suite from one build to the next. What in reality is happening is that people, carry their exact same suite from one. Why? Because it works, right? They carry the exact same regression suite. They're just piling up more and more tests, and they're just exploding their pipeline with irrelevant test cases, tests that are broken, flaky, invaluable. And I think there needs to be kind of a governed process for DevOps, especially with test automation. And that was the idea behind the book.
Okay. Well, so this brings me to a question that when we talk about DevOps, immediately people start thinking about, okay, it needs to be entirely automated. Okay,
Mhm.
everything has to be automated, and it is all about automation. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Um, it cannot be true because it's impossible to automate everything, right? But the only thing that is true in that statement is that you need to automate whatever is important and high value and that can eliminate risks to your release pipeline. What do I mean by that? Obviously, automating the key business scenarios, the key business flows on the right platforms is important. Okay, this needs to be automated because whatever holds you from meeting your quality objectives and the release timeline, everyone has like 2 weeks or 3 week sprints. I'm not talking about the mature ones that have kind of a continuous deployment, like a daily builds, right? But I'm talking about the majority of the market, which stands on 2 or 3 week sprints. In this 2 or 3 week sprint, you need to release a working MVP software that underwent all the right test cases. And this means functional testing, performance, accessibility, API, all of these types of tests needs to fit in this sprint. If they are not automated, you won't make it, right? But there are things that needs to be done manually, okay? Exploratory testing, things that are not really going to be recurring from one build to the next. You can keep them manually and you can schedule them in the sprint itself. It's okay. Uh, but the right test cases needs to be automated. The gates between each phase needs to be automated. You can't allow, a person, whether it's a developer, product owner, whatever, to be waiting for a manual thing to happen so he knows that something else happened, right? This needs to be fully automated pipeline, which leaves X amount of percentage for manual things, which needs to be manual by definition.
So, I mean, this will be music to a lot of ears hearing that, okay, you can actually do a lot of exploratory testing within DevOps because a lot of times I have heard a lot of people say that there is no scope for exploratory testing or to do anything else within DevOps because they talk about, automated CI/CD pipelines. So
Right.
obviously your book clarifies a lot of those concepts,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I would definitely put the links to your books in the description of this video. I will go ahead and do that. I think I have benefited because I understand the direction from where you're coming from, and I wanted to ask you, so when we talk about the DevOps loop,
Mm-hmm.
uh, when we move from left to right in that loop,
Yeah.
so people insist initially on saying shift left, shift left, shift left. But I believe that when you are working on DevOps projects, there is enough potential of doing shift right as well. So it has to be a combination of both. It
Mm-hmm.
cannot be just one. Now, in on the right side, you have things like okay, monitoring and stuff. So obviously, I see a potential of automating that part as well. So what do you think? I mean, what is your opinion on shift right and automating some of the stuff on the right side of the loop?
I think that shift right is actually going to become even more important as you mature your DevOps. And I will explain why. Because when you look at production data, okay, and you implement things such as either through real user monitoring SDKs or other monitoring tools, or even test impact analysis, right? TIA is a growing trend. But this, when you zoom into what's happening in production and you feed back to the pipeline the feedback, which means which are the top scenarios that are being used by your end users, which platform are they using, which are the most time consuming things from a performance and availability standpoint. This is where you actually make the most impact on your end users, because you can do as much shift left as you like, but maybe test things that aren't that relevant or important to your users. Only when you combine the shift left activities and the shift right, feeding back into the loop things from the end users themselves, you actually make an impact. So to your point, you need both, and it depends on the organization and the size of the market and the type of application. But you will find that some organization would put more emphasis actually on the shift right, better than on the shift left. And one last comment is about, if you look at just the mobile space,
Mhm.
Android, our good friends from Google have just implemented something they call APKs. APKs is the new form of Android APK binaries. It's kind of a zip file of multiple APKs, which you can deploy to specific market geographies. It can be also specific to a mobile device. And why is that important? This is the hot fix, if you like. Okay, you get some noise from production, you can immediately implement and push to that specific device or market a new fix, a new feature. You can even hide, kind of disable a feature in production by doing so. So I hope that I convinced you, or actually you are convinced. I hope I convinced the audience that this.
I am certain, but what has happened is, as you were speaking about the APKs, I started thinking, how would I test that?
Luckily, and I'm not a marketing guy, I work for Perfecto. We had a customer. By the way, Google are going to mandate starting June of 2021 the implementation. You cannot release any Google application to the store if it's not in the format or extension of APKs. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a mandatory requirement from Google. So
Mm-hmm.
we got already a customer of Perfecto end of 2020. It's quite new, but end of last year they came to us and said, "Listen, we are not waiting for June. We already implemented that new technology. Okay, help us test it." And we actually are already supporting APKs in the cloud, so you can test on mobile devices in the cloud with APKs. But to your specific point, how you test that, it's very complicated because it's not. It's the superset of everything because you have the functional testing for your Android application. This obviously stays, but you then need to break it into the specific subcategories of what your developer enabled for each and every APK. Let's say you have an APKs that consists of 6 binaries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, each binary differs from the other by this delta. This
Yeah.
delta can be it only works on the new Samsungs, it only
Yeah.
works on Android 11 and above, or it only works in Australia. Okay,
Right.
we have everything, right? You can play, and the developer can really use this configuration file, the manifest and other files to determine which APK uses or supports which feature. So I think you need to build as a test plan or a test manager these supersets on top of the baseline of your test automation, and all obviously take under consideration all the different device families because
Right.
the APKs, the small ones, will be specific to a group of devices, to a specific geography. So it's a mix of devices, network conditions, and locations, of course, and
Languages.
languages, of course, yes, languages, and the functional features that are enabled, disabled across these different things. Because
Right.
developers are already using APKs for A/B testing. They are deploying gradually only to a specific geography this
Mm-hmm.
APK, but to the other store, they're deploying a different APK. And based on the feedback, going back to the shift right, you actually decide what works. Okay, so it's a very related thing.
Well, yeah, I can relate to it because in one of the projects that I did, what the emphasis was on the right side where the feedback was collected, like you mentioned that there are, you know, you get user statistics, then you get device statistics and all that data, and that feeds in into the loop for the left side so that we understand that okay, this feature is getting the most uh, hits, and this is where we see a risk that if it breaks then there will be danger, so probably it needs to be tested more robustly, so you build more tests into that area. And
Yeah.
so this I was seeing, and this the exam the thing that you just spoke about, APKs, I think there is a lot of potential of that approach in this kind of a platform, because if you are trying to measure that delta or test for that delta, then it becomes really crucial that you are able to do some predictive analysis, and you get all that feedback and then feed it back into the loop and say, okay, this is where I'm going to focus my testing on. Well,
Yeah.
quite interesting. I'm sure a lot of people will love this. And oh, so, are you planning to write something about it, or you have written something already about it?
So I did a session at Automation Guild 2 weeks ago, and I featured one of the things. I talk about many new trends. I spoke about progressive web applications, PWS. I
Mm-hmm.
talk about iOS app clips from
Yeah.
iOS 14 and above, and I talked about the APKs. Actually, I also talked about foldable smartphones and how to test against them. But I spoke about it in the Automation Guild. I do have, let me think. I think I have a blog just specifically on APKs that I can share with you. So if you want, you can
Definitely,
put for the
that'll be
audience.
awesome. If you could share, then I'll share it with the audience.
Awesome.
Now, the burning question that I have, okay, and I'm very curious, since you spoke about it in TestFlix,
Yes.
progressive web applications, websites with with progressive web applications.
Yes.
What is my test strategy going to look like?
Very complicated. In two words, in more words than that, progressive web apps are, the future of web, if you like, because
Yes.
um, you do see today Google building Flutter. Flutter is a cross-platform application. Progressive web is also a cross-platform application, but the unique thing about PWA is that it has unique permission and access to the mobile operating system. So you don't need to go through, the Google Play or the App Store. You simply go to twitter.com, Instagram, eBay. You get a shortcut, a link to your mobile smartphone or tablet, and then you have the application installed. But
Right.
it's not just a web application. It's a web application that can connect and speak with the internal low-level APIs of the device. It can connect to your contact list, can listen to push notifications, can use the offline caching storage on your mobile phone. It can work with sensors like the camera and the audio. So think about, twitter.com. It's a web application. I'm not talking about the native one, but the progressive side of that. You install it on your mobile device, and you can actually, add voice or image from your smartphone to this web application, not through your native layer. So there is good things and bad things. The good thing is, okay, you have one source, JavaScript, that runs across everything, web and mobile.
Right.
The second thing is you have a richer user experience on mobile through a web application. The third is that you are leveraging few powerful things. The offline caching is huge for mobile. Think about eBay. You start purchasing something online through the PWA of eBay on your Android device. You go through a tunnel, you lost your network connectivity. No need to panic, nothing happened. On a mobile phone, you get disconnected. You need to start the entire journey. No, with PWA, you have constant caching happening. So you will actually not be even thrown away. You will still you will still be in the context of the web. And once you get back online, you will continue from the exact same place that you were, I want to say, because you're not disconnected ever. You just left the session in a kind of endpoint. You'll get back on that once the network is connected
So
again.
you mean on resumption of network connection, you still retain the session. You
Yes,
are back. Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
And one of the England best website, the what was the name of this newsletter? Um, it slipped my mind, but it's a newsletter from the UK, and they've built a progressive web. And what's happening from a end user perspective, once you disconnect from your internet while you were on that website, you're getting kind of a puzzle or a game that tells you, we understand that you got disconnected. It's still under the context of their website, but you get some kind of a game that keeps you engaged in the same web application. So this is kind of cool, and it happens as well in eBay, in the eBay store. So this is quite cool.
So, so how do you
Yes.
propose that I? So, okay, so let's say, for the sake of our discussion, let's say we are going to test eBay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which is being progressively built. So
Yes.
do I need separate strategy for testing it on mobile and testing it on, say, for example, a desktop, or can I have a common strategy saying, oh, this behaves in a similar fashion at both
Uh,
ends? Or how is it going to be?
Unfortunately, you would probably need two, because eBay has also a native standalone application. It won't have a responsive and a progressive. You just have one web interface, but you will also have the native APK or IPA installed on your smartphone. But from a testing strategy perspective, the only thing that you need to build a progressive web are two things. One of them is a manifest file. It's kind of a descriptor. And the second one is a service worker. It's a JavaScript add-on top of your website that really manages everything for you. The connectivity to the device sensors, the offline caching, the push notification registration, all the content that this is displayed on the mobile phone and other things are in these files, the manifest and the service worker. So you need to test from the beginning these two files that the manifest is configured correctly, it has the right home URL, it has the proper theme and colors and everything like that from a look and feel perspective. On the service worker side, you need to test, and you have the Chrome DevTools and other web tools that are already provided for you that allows you to test the correctness of a service worker, which means it can easily register for push notification. It can store based on the limits of the device, the cache. I know Android is almost unlimited. It's like up until X percentage of your local storage on your smartphone. iOS is a bit more limited, so I think it's 50 to 100 megabytes of caching.
Yeah.
After that, it's going to be an issue. So you need to test both the service worker and the manifest. But more than that, since it's not being installed from the App Store, you need a different even journey, right? The way to install a progressive web starts from a Chrome browser or a Safari browser on an iOS device. So you need the flow to start with, let's say, a Selenium framework, which has the access to the web driver to the browser. Then you create this shortcut on the mobile phone, and then you do some Appium coding because it's native objects that you need to identify on the mobile device. So it's a combination of Selenium plus Appium with different journeys, but also different devices. What I've learned is that PWA specific websites behave quite differently across different layouts, screen
Yeah.
sizes, resolutions, different networks when you want to test for offline caching, network on, network off. These kind of things are really critical. So to summarize, because I have a lot of material on how to test PWA, but basically think about how you would test today a responsive web on mobile and web, desktop web application, desktop web platforms, and just build a layer of specific PWA test cases that I've just mentioned. The local environment, the user environments, the different sensors, the service worker, and the manifest file, and just start building from that point.
I think I think that's a good starting point because a few days ago we were having a discussion within the test chat community, and
Mhm.
this question came up, and I said, since I am talking to you, what
Yeah.
better opportunity than talking about it? And I think your TestFlix presentation is also there, so I will obviously ask people to reach out or um, explore your material on that, because PWAs, I like you said, are already here. I mean, we are not going to say that it's the future because it's present. So
It's
uh,
present, and if you look, if you go to PWA dot, I think it's dot org or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
pwa.org, yes, right.
Yeah, so you can get also statistics of which browsers are already supporting that technology and stuff like that. And I can tell you, both Google, Microsoft with Edge, Apple with Safari, all the big browsers already support and embed service workers and manifest in their native browsers. So the technology is there, everyone is supporting it, and there are so many good stories around organizations that switch from responsive to progressive, and they have seen tremendous, business success for many reasons. So obviously, it's a growing technology.
Well, I have a question regarding that, because when you spoke about the features of progressive web applications,
Mhm.
I've, I mean, I may sound a little ignorant here, but you can help me clarify or learn better. So, if I have, say, for example, you know, my contact list being explored, or talking to the sensors of my device,
Yeah.
would I not feel as if I am being spied on?
So that's a great question. Unfortunately, you're already, even if you don't know about it, you're already being spied by so many other
Oh, of
applications.
course. Of
We are
course.
exposed. We are exposed, man. Everyone knows everything that we have and use. But honestly, and with all, uh, of my knowledge, coming also from Google and the other big vendors behind the browsers, uh, PWA is an HTTPS application. It comes with a layer of security, and it will ask the user to grant specific permissions like you do with native applications. So
Right.
when you install, you will get all the pop-ups, enable push notification, accept or reject. You can specify, obviously, if you specify or if you decline specific permissions, you will lose some of the functionality, right? But these functionalities, obviously, it's the responsibility of the PWA developers and testers, but the level of security is not less than what you get today on any secure website in the market. It's, again, it's just another layer being added, but still comes with the HTTPS and all the other security on the operating system that you have on your mobile phone.
Right. So initially, I will tell you, initially my understanding was okay with PWAs. It's pretty much like testing a native application. Okay. You probably use a similar strategy and you might get through. But then as I started learning more about it and reading more about it, I started discovering that no, there are differences, of course, and some of them you've highlighted. It will be really interesting as to how people adopt these applications and how people develop their strategies around that. Um, so one more thing that I was thinking about, and I have been, it has been crossing my mind. Maybe you can help me understand that better as well. We spoke about eBay having a native app and then having a PWA website.
Yeah.
Uh, why would I uh, bother to have the native app if I have a PWA?
Great question. And there are many debates within these organizations because obviously it's very costly to keep a web team that handles the website and a mobile team that keeps the mobile, especially when you have one source base that has almost everything. It then comes down to two things. A, PWA is still limited in few of the capabilities. Today we deal with Siri and voice and biometrics. Sometimes these things aren't working as expected on a web application, whether it's PWA or responsive, but specifically to PWA. And obviously, the user experience and the performance of a native app is by far greater than on a PWA application. So I think that organizations are looking to keep, at least for now, both. They already, they haven't built a new team for PWA, right? It's the same web team that simply adds more capabilities. I think that
Right.
as PWA technology grows and closes all the gaps that you can see on a mobile native device, it will blend into a single code base. And maybe the native app will win, maybe just the responsive, the progressive. But yes, to your point, and we see Google developing Flutter exactly the same way,
Yeah.
right? So in my mind, the future of digital is having one single app that is served by a single code base, serving, devices, smartphone tablets, desktop web, and also sometimes even the desktop itself, the Microsoft boxes, if you like, and the laptops as well. By the way, PWA works on a laptop. Okay, you can install a PWA on your Windows 10 machine as a short link that you have, and it's a PWA. Okay,
Nice.
yeah. And just I want to share my screen just for 1 second.
Oh,
Let me
you
know.
can do it for more than 1 second, of course.
No, it's just to show you. Let me know if you can see the PWA stats screen. Can you see it?
Yeah. Yep.
So
I've seen this. Yeah.
okay. Okay, so these are, if you ask about some case studies or, different verticals and what they have experienced by adopting PWA, this is kind of a list of, and it's a growing list. You can go to the next page and next page, and you can see that people are seeing better conversion rates, faster and smaller sizes. Starbucks. Starbucks is a PWA application. Daily active users growing because you actually expand your web to also many mobile users. And today, everyone obviously is on mobile and they order coffee on the fly. So Starbucks also is another case study. And you
Well,
can
a lot of the audience from India will be able to recognize Z5, which
yeah,
is right next to Starbucks, because Z5 is a media network and they have great content on their platform. So
and you see the performance enhancements by moving to PWA. So
yes,
I think that's a great site. So if you are, an organization that considers moving from responsive to progressive, this website can actually give you some of the business justifications of what you will gain by doing so. I just wanted to share this. It's a good resource to have.
oh yes, of course, definitely. This is great, and this will open up the minds of a lot of people, especially testers, because now we have so many different ideas to test it, to make sure that it is indeed giving what what the numbers are showing. For example, it said 3x, more power, basically more
Yeah.
reach. So now I want to talk about something. Okay, we first saw agile,
Mhm.
then we saw DevOps. So what next?
Um, that's a good question. We can divide it into actually different practitioners, but in my mind, the next wave of DevOps is actually an intelligent DevOps. What I mean by that is you're going to start see a lot of AI and machine learning uh, processes blending into the DevOps uh, methodologies. And you look today into impact analysis, big data, observability, shift
Mhm.
right, looking at logs, reducing the time for support tickets by predictive analysis.
Right.
Okay, codeless automation. Okay, Perfecto is now also, in the space of scriptless testing, right? You can
Yes,
record
yes.
Selenium without writing any lines of code. And you have smart reporting, which can easily categorize your failures based on root cause analysis. They can analyze the failures and put them into buckets. It saves you tons of time. So DevOps as a term will not disappear in the near future. It's just going to become more intelligent by adopting AI and machine learning practices. And in that regard, there are domains with AI machine learning that are advancing much more than others. We know that RPA with UiPath and others
Yeah.
in a very good place, from a maturity standpoint. I spoke about scriptless test creation. It's also, we see more and more vendors coming with these kind of offerings. So scriptless test automation is good. Smart reporting, I think it's going and it's becoming very, very critical to many organizations, especially if you're doing a lot of testing.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of testing, you are creating a lot of test data. What do you do with this data, right? You need something which can slice, dice, analyze, and guide you on what to do with these outputs. So,
Well, in fact, just a few hours ago, we were having a discussion on the test chat group, and we were talking about innovation. And one of the things that came to my mind is how we on a project we did build a smart dashboard which captures information coming in from feedback and then feeds it back to the system via by doing a predictive analysis, and it spots the hotspots in the application and says, okay, this is the area where we are likely to get more defects, and so we are able to predict those in advance and prevent those, because that's the basic idea that we've tried to build in, and it has worked really well. So that is quite interesting. Now, I want to ask you this: that if I am looking to build an app or a product where I need a lot of testing in the mobile space.
Yeah.
Okay, and since you are associated with Perfecto, I mean, guys, this is not a marketing pitch, please. Okay, the audience needs to understand. It's because I'm speaking to Eran this question. I think he can address it better. So we often talk about, testing it across the multiple devices, especially in the Android space.
Yeah.
Now, uh, is there a way where I can be sure that I have achieved maximum coverage,
Mhm.
okay, by testing on a minimal set of devices?
So I love the question. I'm looking on my left because I have another screen and I'm trying to find the right file to share with you. And I think I found it. So I'm going to just move it here. Once it's on the screen, let me just share it because I do spend a lot, honestly, a lot of time. If you can see the index, you know, uh, uh, can you see
Yes, yes, yes.
so I release, I'm the author of this as well. So I'm releasing twice a year a test coverage index report that exactly addresses, you can see, in the abstract, why we created the index, on what devices and browsers should I test my mobile and web application to exactly make sure that I'm covering the right set of devices, which obviously are so many of them, and every month you have a new one. So what I'm doing, I'm analyzing the entire market, and the market is obviously big, but I'm doing all the processing for you guys, for the audience. It's a free report, no marketing, no bullshit. It's free. You can download the PDF, and you can see here, I'm providing you insights on web and on mobile, which are the most desktop browser popular based on market share. On the mobile front, in the United States, you are from the Netherlands. I'm covering the Netherlands as well, right? Which are the market share per each vendor. Obviously, Samsung is the leading one in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, but you also see some OnePlus devices, Xiaomi and Huawei devices. Huawei, in my mind, in Europe is average in between 5 to 10%, depending on the country. But Huawei's are also important. So after I'm analyzing the entire market, I'm looking also in the Perfecto cloud because we have so many clouds in different geographies, and we're getting traffic, of course. So we're analyzing the data. You see Australia, Switzerland, India, and I'm looking at all these parameters. And at the end of the day, I recommend a set of devices. Obviously, each customer might have his own analytics, his monitoring what's happening in his production, his backend system, what's hitting his backend system with user agents and everything. But aligning and merging with this kind of data, which is generic market data, really gives you, in my mind, the best recommendation on which devices, which operating systems, and in which geographies to test. And I can tell you one more thing, especially, and you mentioned Android, you can see here, and I added specifically a column called stock and custom OS.
Yeah.
Okay, not almost, other than Google Pixel, all of the Android devices are customizing their operating system. So you
That's
can see that the Galaxy S9 is running One UI 2, and S8 Plus running One UI, and this one is running One UI 2.5. The S21, which was just released, is running One UI 3, okay, or 3.1 already. So these custom OS are different binaries for you to test.
Yep.
So I'm doing all these different, alignments and cross-checking. So you won't need to do so. So you have this data, it's free. So I recommend looking at all these different parameters, the screen sizes, PPIs, release dates, legacy versus new, the stock versus custom OS, and also look at my trend. I'm looking at also trending from usage perspective. Do we see more usage climbing or declining on this specific device? When you look at all this data, you can come up with a nice strategy, and you don't need to cover the entire ocean, which is
right.
big.
Right. So this is awesome. Uh, you can probably share the link with me, and then I will put it on the description.
I will.
This is absolutely perfect. I mean, addresses a lot of my questions. So, well, you've kind of been reading my mind and then flipping through some of those some of those pages. Now, normally we don't make this discussion very technical all the time. We just try to keep it a little
Yep.
lighter. So I'm going to switch to a little lighter part of the discussion, and this is more like a rapid fire for you,
Yep.
where I ask you a few questions and you have only 5 seconds to think before you answer.
I like
Okay.
that.
And if you get a multiple choice, then you will have to support your answer with a reason. Okay, as to why that. Okay. So first question: food in Israel or food in the US?
Israel.
What's your favorite food?
Shawarma would be my top choice. Yeah, you can hardly find it. I'm based in Boston, in the US. It's very hard to find good shawarma in Boston. I can tell you that.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And okay. So assuming that COVID is gone in the next few minutes, which is the first place you would want to visit with your family?
Obviously, Israel. I was a frequent traveler before COVID, presenting, as you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
and I haven't been on a plane for a year now. I'm celebrating 1 year of not climbing on any plane. This is unique. In 21 years, it never happened to me. I guess to almost anyone. So yeah, I will probably want to visit my family that I haven't seen for over a year now, which are in Israel. So that will be my first choice if I'm not being sent to somewhere else by the company. But yeah, that will be my first choice. Food and family are Israel.
All right. And uh, what's your favorite sport then?
Basketball. Everyone who knows me, I'm a basketball player. I love. I actually, that's the only thing I enjoy many things in Boston, but I'm a fan of the Boston Celtics, obviously. So I watch the NBA almost every day, regardless of who is playing. I love basketball. That's my favorite sport.
Yeah, no, because you said basketball, so I was anyways going to talk about the Celtics, but you've mentioned it already that they are your
I'm
favorite
reading your
team.
mind. I'm reading your mind already.
Yeah, you you've been doing that. So the Celtics haven't won in a while, right?
That's a painful point. I agree. Yeah, this is not going to be the best year for the Celtics. They started strong, and many of the teams have become much more stronger. They've built a very strong bench. But I would call it this is like a financial season. We're not really going for all the titles. We're just keeping it. I see that the team is enjoying the season, but they're not really having strong aspirations to becoming champions this year.
Well, so I lived in the US for some time, and um, even though I'm from India, I developed love for the NFL, and people went crazy when they oh
You recognize the sign, right?
oh yes, Tom Brady, of course.
Thank you.
The Patriots. How can I forget? Okay, so even though so I lived in Denver, and so the Broncos was the team, and then people used to talk when they used to say, why don't you ever talk good things about the Broncos quarterback? And I was like, come on, man, you can't, uh, you cannot think of anybody else when Tom Brady is still in the league and he's playing. Okay, that man was, in my opinion, is a machine. Okay, so he's
He's a legend. He's a
yeah,
legend. And
I have never seen a more accurate. I mean, there may have been in the past, I don't know, but a more accurate guy than him, and you know,
and
just
he's still the champion. He's still the champion, even
yes,
with outside of the New England Patriots. He's still the champion.
he
He's
is.
Even maybe.
So, so thank you for that fun segment, and because I obviously do a little bit of homework on my guests, so I knew that it was going to be basketball. So I did my homework on the NBA. Sorry, on
Hold
the
on.
NBA as
Hold on.
well.
Yeah,
Okay. Uh, so we have a few minutes left, and I have a couple more questions for you.
sure.
So we've seen that worldwide there's been a sort of a financial crisis, and the industry has slowed down.
Yep.
Now, according to you, is there an impact that happens on the testing side of things, or it doesn't matter?
Oh, it matters. It matters. If you look 1 year back when testing was kind of agnostic, you could have done testing in-house, locally, DIY, like do it yourself. This is no longer the case. Almost all of the testing switched to being remote. And when I'm talking about remote, I'm not just talking about the testers being remote, I'm talking also about the DUTs, the
Yeah.
platform under test. They also needed to be accessed or even built remotely. This is where we have seen the boost in the cloud usage. We are obviously Perfecto as a cloud. So 2020, luckily for Perfecto in our business, 2020 was a very good year for Perfecto because a lot of the DIY labs, these mobile devices that were sitting on the desk, etc., they had no access to them. They couldn't go to the office, and they switched most of the testing to remote, to the cloud. So you have also, and this is a good thing because you actually started seeing testers becoming more professional in doing this remote testing. They learned a lot of things about cross-platform dependencies, cross-team dependencies, how to communicate with developers when they are so, disconnected from each other. So I think while 2020 was a disaster for many reasons, from a testing perspective, I wouldn't say that it was so bad. I think that it taught the market, the industry, us as practitioners, many good things that we will take. And I think that some of the things that we have learned will stick with us, regardless of when we are going back to normal. People will still, because a lot of things broke in the first few weeks or months because people were used to being in the office and testing, and the environments were not an issue because it was there. And now everything is in the cloud. I don't think that everyone will switch back from a cloud to a local environment. So I think that we're going to see a very new reality for testers going forward. Again, in a good thing, not in a bad thing. So I think it's good.
So how does the combination of, we were talking about PWAs,
Yeah.
how does the combination of PWAs and remote testing work?
So at the end of the day, you're testing PWA on the same platforms that you're testing responsive or native, right? You're testing it on mobile devices and desktop browsers. The only exception is that you can also test it on laptops or
Right?
computers, right? So everything is now either through Perfecto or AWS and others. You have clouds that support and give you access on demand at scale to anything. So I think that for PWA, responsive, Flutter applications and others, the cloud will be the first choice, okay? Just because you have unlimited scale, you can run in parallel. You don't need to worry about all these updates of these frameworks because let's say PWA needs to run on all the iOS devices, on all
Yeah.
the Android devices, and on all of the browsers. These are getting updated on a monthly basis. You know that, right? Chrome has a monthly release. Firefox has a monthly release. Edge copies from Google and has a monthly release, right? Microsoft figured out the way to let others do the job for them. So they switched to Chromium and just put the word Edge. And now, they're just borrowing the Chromium engine into their browser. But still, when you're dealing with the cloud, you don't need to deal with all these constant updates. You don't need the IT to worry about that. You have the cloud. You just put as a desired capability latest -1, latest -2, whatever it is, you're covered. Okay, you don't need to worry about it. So that's an advantage.
Well, Yeah, that is indeed an advantage. Well, thank you so much for all that insightful discussion. I mean, this has been one of the most fun episodes for me because I have learned so much in 1 hour. This is absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your time. Uh, it's Friday, weekend is here. So I wish you a very happy weekend. And I am going to make sure that, we are working on some programs in future. So I'm going to make sure that I invite you to a more interactive program, maybe an AMA, where a lot of testers can engage and ask you a lot of questions and get their answers real time. So
Sure.
yeah, so please watch out for my messages on LinkedIn and on email, and then we'll work out the schedules and put something together. So once again, thank you so much for your time. And as they do in India, thank you.
Thank, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. Great questions. I will share with you some of these links. So if anyone wants to learn
Yes,
more about PWA's, APKs coverage, you have all the information available. And I
yes.
look forward to working with you and this community in the future. And have a great weekend as well.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Team.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.